Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Subtext Podcast Archives. These are the long-lost episodes of the Subtext that were originally produced between 2015 and 2017. In 2018, the Subtext moved to American Theater Magazine, and we've been producing the pod there monthly ever since. These time capsules are being shared here in their entirety, including plenty of outdated references and advertisements for events far in the past. If you enjoy them, please subscribe to the current podcast feed for the Subtext or stream new episodes on the website for American Theater Magazine. Thank you for listening.
Your goal? Write a new play in 30 days. It's the first day. You wake up extra early. You turn on your computer, open a new document, stare at a blank page. You have an idea, sort of. You stare at the blank page. It stares right back at you with the defiant confidence you wish you had. Music will help get you started. Put on something good, no, not that song. You'll start singing along, and the next thing you know, you'll be writing your own lyrics. Explosions in the sky. No words, just tone, feeling. Explosions in the sky will transport you to the place you need. Oh, remember that episode of Friday Night Lights? Who played Matt Saracen? What's that actor up to now? He was 25 years old when he played a high school student. Step away from the internet. Look around the coffee shop. It's early in the morning. Not many people getting coffee. They're all still asleep, but not you. You woke up extra early today. Wait a second. There's an election going on. What's the latest poll? No. There's only one way to make America great again. You need to start writing that play. That play that's been running through your head for weeks. It might be the play that breaks you open, finally gets you the recognition you dream of. You just need to start writing. Start writing something. Take a sip of coffee. The man sitting at the table directly across from you is studying a Bible. He blows his nose in a napkin. He uses that napkin to wipe spilled coffee off his table. He returns to his Bible. Remember to never sit at that table, ever. Go back to your blank page. The cursor blinks. It mocks you. Act 1, Scene 1. The lights rise on... Wait, you haven't checked Facebook since you uploaded that cute picture of your dog? 17 likes. Not bad. Only 2 comments, but it's early. The West Coast is still asleep. Take pride in yourself for being able to get up so early so you can write. Check the clock. You've been sitting there for an hour. Your coffee is getting cold. The blank page is still blank. The blinking cursor sort of looks like a middle finger. Just write something. Anything will do. Those 2 older guys sitting over there dressed in paint clothes, they're there every day just like you. They clearly own like a house painting company. They look like brothers. They sort of have a Mario and Luigi thing going on. Do not, under any circumstances, go watch that YouTube video of the kid playing Super Mario Brothers theme on guitar. Oh, this is getting ridiculous. You have 30 days to write this play. Somebody told you it was a good idea for a play. Maybe they were just being nice. Would they have told you it was a stupid idea? Is it a stupid idea? Should you write something else instead? Take a breath. Just to get your writing juices flowing, you open up an older play and you do some rewrites on that one scene you were thinking about. At least you're writing something. The blank page taunts you. You think maybe if you ate breakfast, you'd be better focused. Your coffee is now tepid. You have 12 minutes left until it's time to go to work. What can you really accomplish in only 12 minutes? What's the point? You might as well see who won the game last night, what happened at the debate. What are your website stats? Check the weather, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, Gawker, Vulture, Twitter, Facebook. Breathe. You have 4 minutes left. Don't let this entire morning be a waste. You write something down. Something. Anything. For the love of God, just start writing. Do not let that fucking blank page... Just then, your phone buzzes. Somebody sent you a Snapchat. Mario and Luigi have left. The snotty table wiper is packing up his Bible and getting ready to go. You figure you might as well throw in the towel for today, Pack up your computer, close the blank page, pretend it never existed. Walk to your car. A flock of wild parrots fly overhead. Their squawking makes you think of something. Act 1. Scene 1. The lights rise. You'll remember this tomorrow morning, right? Sure you will. Get in your car and drive to work. Remember to tell people how early you woke up so you could write. Welcome to the Subtext. If this is your first time listening, welcome to our 10th episode. There are 9 other interviews in the archive with some pretty excellent playwrights. Go find them on thestage.la or on iTunes. This month's guest is Sheila Callaghan. If you don't know Sheila Callaghan already, I commend you for finally making it out from under the rock you've been living under. Sheila is the author of a bazillion plays, including Bed, running at the Echo in Los Angeles, and Women Laughing Alone with Salad, opening soon at the Kirk Douglas Theater in Culver City. She is also a TV writer on shows like The United States of Terra, Shameless, and Casual.
Although I'm chill now because I just taught a class, so that's cool. I'll try not to move around too much.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been teaching for a little over a year and a half. But I've been going to that studio forever.
Yeah.
I didn't even expect to, it never occurred to me to teach. I did have a little file on my desktop with songs that had, this file was called Spin with question marks because I had a fantasy about teaching it because I love it so much. But they charge a lot for teachers training. It's like $1,500. And I was on hiatus and I had the money from the last job I had taken, and I had nothing to do, and I had stopped drinking for like a year and a half, and I was like, and I had you saw my play. I had a little rift with my husband at the time, so that's based on stuff that happened with us. I'm giving away all of this before the podcast.
We're actually up and running. So
Okay. Oh, we are?
Well, yeah.
Do we need to do an intro?
No.
Okay.
I record that separately.
Okay. Well, anyway, the play is not autobiographical, the one at the Echo, but it does have elements of truth to it, and so I got trained during that time when I was in crisis and I didn't have any coping skills, and so I trained thinking I was just going to be in decent shape and also have somewhere to put all that kind of mania that I was feeling, and then they put me on the schedule right after that.
So why become a teacher and not just go and take classes?
I mean, that's what people keep asking me, but, I have as a lot of, I'm sure, people who have extreme interests, and extreme personalities. I like to get as the most I possibly can out of the thing that I'm doing. And I also think my plays kind of they go as far as they can and a little bit more, and I feel like that's kind of my personality also. And I didn't know how to do more. I didn't know how to get more except to make the playlist and kind of have control over the vibe of the class. And also, I was there pretty much 5 days a week because I had some lower back issues, so I couldn't run this like I used to, and I had some knee issues, and spin is really good for that, and I had to start doing yoga, so I also teach yoga there, and there was just no other, it literally around the corner from me, so I was there all the time already, and they put me on the schedule because I was good at it, but also I think what's really has been missing from my life lately, as I've been getting more into this double career of TV writing and playwriting, I've missed performing a lot. I'm not an actor, but I love acting. I'm just not terribly good at it because I get self-conscious, but I love performing. I'm a singer. And I used to have a band with my husband, and I used to dance in clubs for money, be a cage dancer. And all of that kind of beautiful, connecting energy that you feel when you're on stage communicating with an audience, you don't really feel the same visceral sensation when you're writing, but when you're performing, you do, of course. So
You said like 50 things I want to talk about, but just I kind of want to put a button on my curiosity.
Sure.
Because I've known you for a couple of years now, and I've been connected to you via social media for a little bit. And when I saw you sharing so much about this, like running spin classes, I was just like, here's this successful playwright, TV writer doing what is ostensibly a survival job for so many people in LA, and I was just fascinated by that.
Well, I know people react to it kind of as if I'm a lunatic, and it doesn't feel like lunacy to me because of this performative aspect. A lot of us writers, started as actors and had to drop it at some point for whatever reason, like neuroses or that kind of very in-your-face rejection that you get as an actor that you don't get as a writer. But the connection to other people is something that I feel in the spin class, but also fitness. I have a thyroid condition, and so I need to exercise or else I'm miserable. So the accountability is something that I enjoy about that. But I also use it to work around my writing schedule. But another thing, this has been coming up a lot because people have been asking me to advise younger playwrights and writers, like what are bits of advice? And one of the things that I've been telling them recently is have something else that you love besides playwriting or TV writing, because there's so much disappointment and heartbreak built in, especially if you really care about it, especially with theater, because there's little to no monetary reward. So it's all heart and it's all heartache. Even when it goes well, it's never going to go perfectly because it's an impossible art form. And so having something else that you love that you can walk away and shut down your brain and be something else for some period of time to remind yourself about perspective and stakes. And this is where I've found, like, I'm so in my head when I write, and then it's the exact opposite when I'm teaching. I'm so in my body, and I'm so connected to people, and so it's the perfect thing for me, even though it seems like, oh, now you've got another career. What the hell's wrong with you?
You're a career collector.
Yeah, I guess I am.
Where did you grow up?
In Jersey, mostly. I was born in New York, but
were you athletic, performative? In your high school years?
A spaz. I was never an athlete. I'm pretty not unconnected to my body, which is why the spin thing is so helpful for me. Is because I'm like, I'm one of those people who walks around the world and knocks into things, and it's not just klutziness. It's just I live inside my head. I feel like I'm invisible all the time. Growing up as a middle child, I think that's part of it. So I was always trying to get people's attention. I guess the performative stuff came. My dad owned a bar, and so we used to go and because my parents, my mom was, I think at that point she was working, and we didn't have money for babysitters, so there were three of us growing up, and we would just hang out at the bar, and it was like a pretty rough crew because it was about 3 to 4 p.m. after school, and we would just go to the bar, and my dad would be behind the bar making burgers in the back.
How old are you?
He had the bar, I wish I remembered. It was at least from when I was 8 to 11. Mm-hmm. So we would just go there and put songs on the jukebox and then either play the spoons to the songs, which, you can imagine how delighted these drunk people who had just maybe lost their job or were like trying to get, a little bit of lubrication before they went home to their families, and they had these like three little assholes just like, let's I think You May Be Right by Billy Joel needs some spoons. I think that's what the song is missing. So, or like Tom Petty or whatever. But so we would perform, or like I would lip sync the songs. I don't know. I guess that's as close as I got to performing as a kid.
So as a person growing up very much in your head and bumping into things, obviously that, we know now that a child growing up living in their head, there is a good chance that person's going to become a writer. When did you realize that?
I was always writing stories in second grade, and I had a best friend named Dina who she and I used to write stories based on things that we would read. We were big readers, and we would write little stories based on the characters that we read, and then we would make up stories in our bedrooms and act them out. And so we were always writing stories, and then at some point, other people stopped writing, and I kept writing, which is true. But then I was trying to think of the reason why I kept writing. Like what I jokingly always say is nobody told me to stop, but nobody ever tells anybody to stop. It's just your interest flags. And I was trying to figure out why my interest never flagged in writing. And it was because I wasn't a good enough visual artist, because my sister, who is 9 months older than me, was at the time, she doesn't do art for a living, but she's a gorgeous artist, like a genius level artist. The way she sees the world and is able to put it onto a paper in any kind of medium, she just has this fluency with visual art that I always expected to catch up to. When I'm her age, I'm going to be as good as her. And at some point I realized that I was never going to be as good as her, because she was a genius and I was slightly above average. And it made me angry and upset because I didn't want to be bad at anything. And so I found another outlet. I turned down the art because I was taking a lot of art lessons, and I had canvases, and I had all the oil paints, and this was going to be my thing. And I'm not bad at it. I'm like pretty good at it, but just being so close every single day to somebody who is so much better than you, maybe give that up and just settle into another art form where I felt like I could at least master this if I just learned enough and read enough and surrounded myself enough with it. Because it's not about instinct all the time. It's about depth and understanding and openness. And that has very little to do, I think, with where you put your hands in space and what you deliver through your fingers. It's more about how psychically vulnerable you want to be. And that I feel like you can control. But I could not control me getting better at art. It just wasn't going to happen.
So when did the writing become dramatic writing?
Well, I think that happened in college mostly because I was still acting in college. I wasn't good at it. There weren't a lot of good roles for women that we were doing, and so I wanted to write some stuff for myself, and I was not great at that. So I started just writing stuff for my friends. But it was a way to stay connected to theater because I also studied literature, and I was deeply in love with the written word. Poetry. I studied the modernist, the postmodernist. I was super into avant-garde poetry and like John Ashbery. And I was in love with Gertrude Stein and Hemingway had a place in my heart too. And like all the people in the canon, and then slightly to the left. And Lynn Heginian was also a language playwright that I was in love with. But at any rate, I didn't want to give up words, but I also didn't want to give up theater. And so it seemed like a natural path to try to combine them together and find a way to make it work so that I didn't get to lose any of them. And the kind of theater that I wrote in the beginning was very poetic. And I read a lot of Eric Ann, I was reading a lot of Mac Wellman, and a lot of those kind of, like those playwrights who experimented a lot with language as drama versus drama as drama.
Well, your work now is very poetic. I would say you have this mastery over bringing the personal and the poetic together. And I'm so curious about, this is sort of like there's something unmistakable about your plays. You could put me in the theater and I'll watch a play and I'll be like, oh, Sheila Callaghan wrote this play. I can tell. I don't have a playbill in front of me. And was this an instinct? Was this a result of you studying poetry and bringing that to your dramatic writing? Did you over the course of college and post college just discover you had this flair for the poetic?
Well, I think anybody has potential to have a flair for the poetic. I just think some people are more interested in authenticity when it comes to language and reality, and some people are more interested in an ecstatic expression. And I think I fall somewhere in between there, but when the opportunity arises to wax ecstatic about some powerful emotion that language ceases to fulfill, that's when I feel like I go into the poetic realm, because, for me, I also grew up on musical theater and also being a musical person. And the thing that always is incredibly satisfying to me is that 11th hour song, or is it 7th hour song? I can't remember which hour it is.
The 11th hour.
Yeah. So when
I'm not a musical theater person.
Well, but I went, because we grew up also with baseball, so I was thinking seventh inning stretch. So whatever hour the big, emotional, impactful, revelatory, ascendant song comes out where you're revealing everything, all your fears, your hopes, your dreams, your terrors, it must be expressed in song because you can't talk it out. You can't. There's not enough language for it, so you have to add something to the language, and that has to be a different way of communicating. And that's how I see how poetry functions, at least in my work, is in a kind of an aria, in a almost like a psychic level, psychic and emotional level, rather than just sort of a gritty communication channel.
And if I'm remembering correctly, in everything you touch, the act break, right, is a it's a small song. It's a music. I mean, it's a song, and it seems like it's a moment for that character, Jessica. That's a little much, and she's not sure how to express it otherwise.
Right? Yeah. It's sort of a break with the way that we've been watching her communicate through the earlier part of the play. But to me, there's something so moving about a moment where you're not in a musical. And there's no reason for music, like logically, like, oh, now it's time for a song, because that's how we rhythmically experience the work. And I've seen it a few times. I've seen it in young Jean Lee's work. I've seen it in Washburn's work. I saw it in Dan Dietz's play that you guys did.
American Misfit.
Yeah, right at the act break. And almost exactly, like, I may have even ripped him off. But like, holy shit, you're like, this is new, and I'm psyched, and I can't wait to see what the second act is. It, to me, makes my heart break a little bit to watch somebody who also can't sing very well, because that's the opposite of the musical theater realm, where you have these beautifully trained singers who you're watching people walk on a tightrope. You know that they're not going to fall off this tightrope. Instead, you're watching somebody who doesn't have a lot of control over their facilities when it comes to pitch. And you're watching them do it anyway. And then that, to me, that's where, like, I start to feel vibrating and something is transcending. And so that's just something I like to watch. And so in addition to having it be another level of communication that's outside the play, watching it, I feel like I'm suddenly, I want to hold the person who's trying so hard and maybe failing a little bit. And I hope that it evokes that response in people when I'm doing it.
And it's being delivered imperfectly is crucial then.
Yeah, that's
right?
the point.
Yeah. In Bed, you have a character who is pretty regularly expressing herself musically, and it seems to be almost like a drug. Like, shit gets so heavy, she needs to pick up that guitar and just start wailing away.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, and there's a handful of songs in that show. And you mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if it got cut when we were having our little blips, but you mentioned earlier that Bed is a personal play.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you used the word personal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's personal more than autobiographical, because there's like a lot of similar emotions that I was going through, but they're definitely not those characters. And there's some information in the play that is emotionally true to something that I was going through, but the play itself is not about myself or my life. But
Are you afraid that people will, like somebody like me, will watch that and be like, "Wow, I can't believe that happened to Sheila"?
I'm kind of hoping that they watch it and they're like, wow, I can't believe that happened to me, like you, watching it. Because one of the benefits, because I don't often write so personally, because I found it incredibly painful and almost psychologically damaging, honestly. It felt too raw to be delivering that stuff to people I don't know, even more raw to be delivering it to people I do know. So it's been difficult. I also didn't think anybody would produce a play, because it's an 80-minute play that all takes place in a bed, and you need your lead actress to be a rock star. So I thought it was impossible. And
side note, she's got some pipes.
Well, she had a gorgeous voice, but she when we hired her, she told us she was learning the guitar. And I thought when she said she was learning the guitar, she kind of knew how to play it. She didn't know how to play it. So she learned the guitar in a month.
Wow.
She put so much. Oh my God! Just thinking about it makes me want to cry. The amount of commitment this actress had to that part, and how she's able to convey it in a convincing way. And she's musical, so that helps. But her voice is just angelic. But to get to your earlier point about this personal nature of this thing, it is definitely something that I do, that I also know a lot of people do, is when things get a little rocky, a little tough to deal with, there's two options. You go and sit with your therapist and blab about how your dad was mean for 40 minutes, and then you eventually get to what's going on. Or you retreat into your head and you write some stories, because it's a lot easier to be with the people in your head who you can control than to be with the people in your life who you can't. And I've been guilty of doing that. And that's a lot, not to be too personal, but that's a lot of what the play is about, and that's a lot of what I was going through in my life when things got difficult and I didn't know how to handle it. I would go into a comfort space, which was, making people up and watching them go through the stuff that I didn't want to go through. So,
vulnerability seems to be a big challenge for that character. Is that true for you?
I don't know. I feel like I'm a lot more self-destructive, weirdly, than that character. I have been. That character refuses to be vulnerable until the very last minute of the play, whereas me, I feel like I have this very reckless impulse to make myself vulnerable and then cope with the fallout, which would be supported by this action of putting this very personal play out into the world and then waiting to feel what I need to feel in order to get through it, and also bringing my husband with me, who incidentally wrote the music. So we collaborated on this play that basically dragged us both through this really difficult moment in our lives. And we're working on it, but we've been together for 13 years and we're very passionate, difficult people, and we're in love, so there's a lot to do there to make that work. So that's kind of what I wanted to say with that play.
Have you two talked about the play? Are you able to talk about the play without talking about yourselves?
Yes, he's really good at that. I'm less good at that. Because, again, the play isn't about us, and the play is very selective in what it chooses to put out there. There's a whole, it's not us. It's not our story. But it's a story about a 10-year relationship that hits like a pile of shit for a little while. Yeah. And so when we talk about the play, we talk about terms of the art, and we talk about in terms of the characters and what they want and what they're trying to get and what they want. Like, there's an arc to the music as well that he created. And so initially I didn't let him read the play. What I did was I gave him context for the songs that I needed so that he could keep his distance from the emotional content and deliver the music that needed to convey whatever needed to convey. Like, if it's hard to imagine this now that you've seen it, but if we went back and just listened to the songs, they're very specifically designed to indicate a place in the main character's career and also in her emotional state. And that last song that she can't finish is probably her worst song. So they kind of had to write a bad song. Him and his partner, Sophocles, and his partner Max had to write a shitty song that fell apart because that's what she was doing. But there's this one beautiful song in the middle where she's kind of at the height of her powers. And that one had to be the most complex and the most fulfilling and satisfying to hear, I think, as an audience. And I find that super moving just watching this actress do it.
It really was moving because you're actually seeing, if you're paying attention to the music, you're seeing the construction of a song in a way, because when you're first introduced to her and her relationship to the guitar, she's not doing a whole lot. She's sort of just like, this is a thing, I pick it up and I use it, and then over the course of the play, this song is revealed, or a song is revealed,
yeah.
Whether that's the one she's working on or not. And then you really hear her voice, and I was like, wow. I was so like, I sat back and was like, that was kind of amazing. And I was seated really far away from her too, and her back was towards me, didn't impact negatively at all. Like, the staging was kind of.
Oh, that's perfect. Jennifer's kind of great. She's really good instincts. And when you talk to her, it's weird. Like, some people are super articulate about what they're doing when they're doing it. Like Neil Keller, who I'm working with right now at the other show we're opening at March 6th at the Kirk Douglas in Culver City. He is a very cerebral kind of director, and we parse things out, and we talk and talk and talk, and we get there and we build the play like that. Jennifer is much more instinctual when it comes to that stuff, and I think it was like perfect for this type of work, because it is such emotional work versus the other play, which is very political. So it's
Women
luckily.
laughing alone with salad.
Yeah.
So this is a thing I didn't know.
God, yeah.
I didn't know existed until your play.
Ah, really?
So I hear about your play,
funny.
and I'm like, what is this? What is this? And I'm connected via social media to Wooly in DC, and they world premiered it, right?
Yeah.
A few months ago, and I'm like, what is going on with this? And I find out it's based on a Tumblr, and then I did a search on Twitter for the title, and plenty of people are talking about this, completely unrelated to your play.
Yeah.
And it's what is this? What is this phenomenon?
Well, I mean, okay, so it began with Edith Zimmerman, who was, I think she was running the website at the time called The Hairpin, which was this small, like, liberal arts bent feminist website. It still exists, but it didn't have, I don't think it had a giant readership at the time. It was very specific, geared to, like, younger women who were interested in issues of feminism. And she basically introduced a sub-meme to her audience, which is, there's this, what do you call it? Stock photography image meme. So, like, you see, you know what stock photography is. Like, you access this database that has these repeated images, so you can sell lots of different kinds of products. If you're a company, you don't have a dedicated marketing department. And, you could do it for telecom, you can do it for any kind of business. And so there's a lot of repeated memes, like there's businessman angry yelling into a phone, and if you look that up, you'll find that. Or young biracial student listening to headphones. If you Google that, you'll get like 100 different images of this exact thing, right? So you can sell something. But the women laughing alone with salad and women struggling to drink water were the ones that this website found. And the women laughing alone with salad was this repeated image of mostly white women in kind of yoga gear with giant bowls of super unappetizing looking iceberg lettuce, and they're just in paroxysms of joy over this incredibly undynamic meal. And so the image itself is absurd. The repetition of the image is maniacal, because you think about what is it selling. So what Edith did was just basically, without comment, curated a set of images that repeated this aspirational idea of what women should want, basically, to sell products. So you should, first of all, want to be super healthy in pastels. You should want to be white. You should want to be slim. And you should want to really love deprivation to the point where you are so happy about it. And you also should be alone when you're doing it, because all of these things are suggesting some sort of female who is strong and has martyred indulgence for the sake of her own either appearance or health, which I find quite bullshit-y. But I'm sure, but I certainly wasn't the only one, because this blew up, like, huge. Like, this site, this like, basically launched this site into the public consciousness, this website. And then Women Struggling to Drink Water came after that. So all of these stock images of, now this is a little bit more porny, women in workout gear with sports bottles aimed at their face, but the water is being squeezed and landing on their eyeball or their cheek or their chin.
This is a thing?
You go look it up, man. It is ridiculous. Or it's on their chest. So they can't quite get the water into their faces because they're busy jizzing it all over their bodies, because women really want to be jizzed on. I mean, that is basically the idea. I'm sorry, this is gross. And by the way, a lot of women do like to be jizzed on. That's fine. But what are you selling?
Right.
Who is selling this? And what are they selling? And why are there so many of these images of women dousing themselves and looking slightly unhappy about it? Because none of them look happy about it. Women look happy with the salad. Women look violated by the water. And so, I mean, I don't think I'm putting that on it. I think it's actually inherent in the images. But again, many of them. So when you start to look at them, in succession, there's two things that are happening. One, you start to wonder about marketing, and you start to wonder about what are we actually telling young women to be with these images. But the other awesome thing that's happening is the curation of them has a commentary attached to it, which is a point of view that I don't think we have had in a long time about these kind of images, which is we're going to laugh at them because they're absurd, and we're going to put them out there because they suck. And we're going to talk about them because we have to. We're having a conversation about them and about the mass of them and what it means. And so that's why this shit inspired me to write a play. It was those two levels. It was one, the images themselves, and two, the conversation around the images that felt new and interesting to me. And so, you know, being somebody who I'm just obsessed with the internet. I use it for research, but I love the energy of that spastic, you know, information ingestion that you get, or like indigestion, honestly.
So what's the play inside that?
So the play has nothing to do with anything I just said, but it has a conversation about the topics that I talk about. So I started the play as 3 monologues based on women that were in these images, but then the play became about these 3 separate women of 3 separate generations, all trying to deal with how the media has been trying to form them into human beings, but the play is actually about the man who they affect. So it's a feminist play about a guy who's trying to cope with the fact that women are socialized to hate themselves and what that does to him. And part of the reason I chose to do that is because I'm really tired of having conversations about how the world sucks for women with women. I want to have that conversation with men because I feel like, first of all, people pay more attention to feminism when men are talking about it, because it doesn't feel like the maligned are speaking for themselves. It doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of victimhood. It feels like it's coming from a place of deep and also truthful injustice. So, for example, if you watch Louis, there was this beautiful episode he wrote where he basically was trying to make a case for this chubby woman who he wouldn't date, and he wrote this monologue about how heartbreaking it is to be that chubby girl who people decide is worth dating because, hey, I think I can do this. I think I can date a chubby girl, and how objectifying that is and how demoralizing that is. And people talked about it because he wrote it, a man wrote it for a woman, not because it's just true. If a woman had written that, I think it wouldn't have gotten the same kind of buzz, because a fat woman talking about how it sucks to be fat is not valid in the same way that a man talking about a woman talking about how it sucks to be fat. And that is just the way it is. So, sorry, that was a very long-winded way of saying what my play is about, which is a man who's trying to cope with women who are socialized to hate themselves.
I feel incapable of being a man talking about feminism. So I don't. I shut up and I listen to other people talk about it. Like, I listen to the women in my life, the women that I know, talk about it, because I don't think I understand enough to have my own opinion.
Well, I guess another way to think about it is you can't talk about how it sucks to be an African American in this country if you're not an African American, but you can talk about how it sucks for African Americans in this country and all the ways that you see that. And that's worthy and worthwhile. And it doesn't mean that you are even imagining that you can understand the kind of suffering that goes with the daily experience of being someone of color in this country if you're not. But you are acknowledging publicly that it's important to talk about. And that, I think, is a worthwhile conversation that kind of gets you off the hook, but also aligns you with a cause that's important to talk about. And also validating from a guy who's not experiencing this stuff from a first hand, but is experiencing it peripherally because you have women friends and because you have African American friends and because you care about people. Mm-hmm. So you're allowed to do that.
Oh, do you going back to Louis? Do you resent Louis for doing it, or you just is it just not just because I don't mean. Is it because it's the way society is right now that you resent that society makes it easier for Louis to say this rather than for a woman to say it?
Yeah, I don't resent anybody for ever talking about things like, how hard it is to exist as a woman when people think that the ERA has passed. A lot of people don't know that it did. A lot of younger people don't know that it didn't, and so we're like, well, a woman's running for president, or is trying to. That must mean things can't be that bad. A woman is CEO of Yahoo. Can't be that bad.
Right, yeah, well, we have a black president,
right.
And racism's gone.
Yeah, right. So like, to have somebody say, okay, so that doesn't correct, that just, that's an example of maybe a little bit of progress. But I don't resent anybody for talking about that stuff. If I sound aggressive, it's because I feel like there needs to be more of that. And people have to feel less terrified of talking about it. And I also think people have to feel less terrified of being labeled a feminist, because I don't know why, but there's still people who think that feminism means hating men. It's crazy. I love men. I love the shit out of men. And almost all the feminists I know love men. It's okay to love men and also say misogyny exists and not blame the men for misogyny. But maybe have a conversation about unconscious bias, which is what we were talking about, without blaming anybody for it. It exists. It exists. Women have it, men have it. We just need to talk about it. And I think men talking about it is powerful. Mm-hmm. Anytime a non-victim is talking about some ill of society and they are in a position of power, like white men are perceived as being in this country, that's important. So no way do I resent Louis for that, or anybody who talks about this stuff with an intelligent voice and a calm perception of social ills.
Do you see progress?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's impossible to say. I know that in television, at least, progress. I don't think you can count progress over a period of 10 years. I think you need to see like what's consistent, what hangs in, because we've been talking about feminism a lot, and like people are getting all the thumbs ups about talking about this shit, right? Like Amy Schumer's getting a lot of props, Broad City getting a lot of props on television, and people are watching this, not just women, and so that's exciting, but it's also trendy. People are into it because it's exciting, and people accept it because they understand it's true. Does that mean it's going to last? Does that mean it's going to change things? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But at least in TV, the audience decides what they want to see, and that feeds the bottom line. So if we have people lining up to see Orange is the New Black, because everyone is interested in these characters. They're not interested in women characters. They're interested in these characters who happen to have vaginas, who are also incredibly interesting people to watch. Then those shows are gonna... Those are the kind of shows that the executives are going to be like, well, money is being made here. Let's keep hiring women's point of view. And theater doesn't always work that way, unfortunately. But that, I think, is progress. Unfortunately, it's television, and we live in a capitalist society, and so money is what makes the difference in that case.
Why is theater different? Aren't even, despite the fact that there's this huge swath of non-profit theaters, they're all still run essentially like with a bottom line, and what people will buy tickets for is sort of like viewership on television, right? Why is it different?
Well, because I feel like the gatekeepers, there's fewer of them, and there's less slots and less opportunities. And if you have people, like if you have, say, and I'm not, I don't know that it's the fault of artistic directors. I like to have this conversation starting with artistic directors, because I feel like if you have a visionary artistic director who's able to educate the audience and how to receive work that may be perceived as risky. Then you have an audience who's open to it. Then you have board members who are willing to fund that. But what winds up happening often is you have funders who are risk adverse. Not I shouldn't say often, but an example of why this may be a problem is your board is telling you, well, let's do things that are going to keep the theater afloat. And the artistic director maybe wants to make an edgy decision, but also knows that he doesn't have the audience built in for it, or she. And so maybe doesn't have the resources to do outreach, to include people in on the process of building this play that may be something they're uncomfortable with or they're not used to. And therefore it's easier and probably more financially sound to deliver something they are used to, like another Sam Shepard play. Or
like straight male protagonist.
Yeah. Or something that they're comfortable, because women are comfortable placing themselves into a male point of view. Men are comfortable putting themselves into a female point of view. Women are comfortable with putting themselves into a female point of view because we're socialized to do both. Men are not socialized to be comfortable with a female point of view, so they have to do a little bit of work. And so it's not a safe choice always to put a female-driven play in front of people and expect them to just be on board. And I receive pretty much across the board criticism for having unlikable protagonists who are women. And I honestly think if we're going to talk about unconscious bias, it's because it's mostly men, critics, who are not prepared to empathize with a female antihero because it doesn't reflect their own experience of the world. Women can do that because while it may not reflect our experience of the world, it reflects our experience of art and entertainment, because that's what we're delivered. And so this is a roundabout way of saying I understand that artistic directors are in a difficult position and maybe have to make decisions to keep their theater afloat, because there's not a lot of people shelling out lots of money for theater. If you have a hit, you're doing great. If you don't have a hit, you're not doing great. There's a lot of non-in-between. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's why theater is more, it's a more troubling model. And also, there's a lot more television viewers than there are.
But you keep coming back to it. You haven't done what a lot of playwrights who end up in television do, which is leave theater for a while.
Yeah.
You seem to have kept both going simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean the way I describe it in shorthand is because I feel like theater is my home, it's my tribe, and TV is my job, and I love them both. But like I cherish and desire and am in love with theater, and TV. It excites me and it frustrates me, and there's still a lot of challenges and there's still a lot of goals, but in theater, there's my community, and I don't want to ever leave that. I mean, I need it. I have a codependency with it. But also, I have TV, you have a lot of notes from people who are telling you what to do based on things that they have no control over that you have no control over. With theater, I have control over everything. And if you hate it, it's my fault. If you love it, you're welcome, TV, I don't know. I mean, I hope you like it, but if you don't, it's probably not my fault because I'm not the show creator.
Okay, good. This is actually a good moment. Can we talk about this for a second?
Sure.
I don't watch Shameless.
But you read my Twitter.
But I read your Twitter.
I knew this was going to
What is happening? What happened?
Oh my God. Okay, so I'll try to explain it the best I can. There was this one relationship in our show that revolved around these two gay characters. One was a closeted thug, and one was a Gallagher, who's our central family, who was coming out of the closet. They were both in love and had this really star-crossed relationship for 4 seasons that had this gorgeous arc to it where they were... At first they were just fucking, but then somewhere love happened, and all of these things were pulling them apart. It was so Romeo and Juliet, and we had all of these young fans who were addicted to this, but also not just young fans, but marginalized fans. We had gay kids, we had trans kids, we had adults who loved to be romantically involved in shows in a way and we had like shippers, hardcore people who would like fan fiction about these to keep them going between the seasons, and I felt that too because I loved this relationship. I was addicted to it, and so I feel like I wrote them well. I was responsible basically for every kiss that they had on screen because I wanted to see them get together, and I also wanted to keep pulling them apart. I loved that too. I'm a romantic, and so the fans associated me with this relationship and like deified me a little bit about it. Like they called me Galovich Queen, which is a portmanteau of their two last names, which is Milkovich and Gallagher, Galovich, right? And so I soaked that in. I'm like, I'll take that. I think I deserve some of it. I mean, I didn't make the couple up, but I wrote the couple well, and I felt hard for them. And then one of the actors left, and the relationship ended. Boom, over. And we didn't do too much work in satisfying the end of this relationship because he was gone, and it was over. And
was it that sudden for like you in the room? Was it sudden, like, oh my God, we just lost this guy?
I wouldn't say the losing of him was sudden, but I don't think that we shaped his arc to the end of their relationship because I don't think we believed he was going to leave because he was so I felt like, or at least I'll only speak for myself here because I don't run this room. I'm a writer in the room. But my feeling was I thought we were going to be able to get him back for some episodes. And it just didn't happen for a number of reasons that I'm actually not even privy to because I'm not a producer on that level. I produce my episodes, but I'm not responsible for any of the contracts that get done above for anyone. So there was a little bit of a blue ball kind of thing happening, and also our character Ian, the Gallagher, he started he developed bipolar disorder. I guess you don't develop it, you have it, and then it manifests, and so we were doing a lot to kind of figure out how that was affecting his personality, and it also affects people's relationships. And sometimes you just shut down. You don't want to be perceived as a sick person. You want to be seen the way you were seen when you were healthy. But then everybody in your world who loves you is revolving around you as an ill person, and that's very heartbreaking, especially with somebody you trust. And something that we built last season was that this is a long way of telling you a very short story. I'm sorry, but it's been on my mind a lot because I've been dealing with.
I'm excited to hear this.
Dealing with the fan fallout, but so the way that we started building this relationship was one of the characters, the Milkovich character, started becoming a nurse to Ian, and Ian didn't want that because he didn't want a fucking nurse. He wanted a boyfriend. He wanted a lover, and Mickey was just doing what he does to see. You can see how emotional I am about this relationship. I care so much about it. Right. Mickey was doing what you do when you're a partner in love, and Ian was doing what you do when you don't want to be perceived as a sick person. And so their relationship broke up and ended, and Mickey went to jail. And then this season, our guy has a new love interest, and people are going crazy over this because they don't like the way the relationship ended because they had their guts in. I mean, it was they were deep in this relationship. The vocal fans, by the way, like there was other characters in our show, right. But the people who are the most vocal are the young ones who are on the internet and are worshiping this couple, and they feel bereft. They're mourning, and I am the most accessible person, the most accessible writer in the writer's room to these fans on Twitter, and so they're coming at me with this rage, and I get it. The rage of why did you kill this relationship?
So they gave you all the credit, and now they're giving you all the blame. It's coming back around.
Yeah, that's kind of what's happening, and I'm responding to it because I feel like I loved this relationship too, and I will take responsibility for what I write, but there's a lot of things that people don't know you can't control in the writer's room. I couldn't keep that actor in the show. I also a lot of the people in the room, I have some experience with bipolar people in my life. There are other people who have a lot more experience with bipolar. And so they some of that shaping of that attitude is coming from these deep experiences that people in the writer's room have actually lived. So some of that doesn't translate to people who don't have those experiences, or it doesn't translate to people who have those experiences that don't reflect the experiences of the people in the writer's room. So anyway, long story short, a ton of anger being delivered at the one person who they know is listening, which is me. And I am listening because I care. So that's what that's about.
But you kind of, you sort of owned it for a while, and you're kind of, you just turn it back on the vitriol, right?
Well, some people are out of control. Like the people who are, not all of the fans are attacking me. Some of them are just trying to talk it through because they need help with the experience of losing somebody. It's like grief. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to engage with the fans who want to engage because I'm grieving too, in a way. Maybe not quite as hard because I'm on the inside of it, so I'm like a power structure. But to them at least. But the ones that I was retweeting were the ones that were abusing me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm fucking not gonna fucking take that. That's not my job. My job is to write as well as I can and to help people through choices that we make that maybe they are having a hard time with. My job is not to take abuse. It just isn't. Nor in my contract, nor in my life have I ever decided since I was little, since I was able to run away from my dad, coming at me, have I decided to take abuse. And that's kind of where that was coming from. So it's nothing against people. People are allowed to have lots of feelings. I'm also allowed to have feelings about those feelings if they're coming at me with them. But I do deeply love our fans because also this suggests that we affected them so deeply that they're grieving, And that's not easy to do.
The level of engagement is
it's gorgeous.
amazing.
But also the kind of people, like the people who are getting so fucking angry that we ruined something. I'm those people too. I feel that way. I don't know that I would ever get on Twitter and yell at a writer about it. but that's also because I know how the business works. Like I know that it's not always that writer's fault. But maybe I would. Who knows? Maybe if I was drunk enough one night.
I'm actually impressed that fans know that level of detail of that who is responsible for.
They don't. That's the problem.
Well, how did they put you together?
Well, because I would advertise my episodes coming up, and I would talk to those particular fans, like, oh, and you Galavich worshippers, maybe you'll enjoy this episode. Like this one episode, which is one of my favorites, is when they have this giant club kiss, and they make out really hard on the dance floor. It's so sexy, and I kind of warned them that they were going to get some screen cap opportunities,
Right.
And then I wrote a sex scene that got cut. And so I've been letting people know that it's out there too. So I don't know. So that's what that is about. It's also giving me a thicker skin about television in general, because a lot of these people, maybe are not well. I don't know. And by the way, that's the amount of people who are talking to me is a teeny tiny sample of the amount of people that watch the show.
Right.
So they're not representative, but.
But it's always the assholes, right? That break through. I mean.
Yeah. I don't know that they're all assholes, though. I think that they're in pain. And then when you're in pain, you don't act rationally. God knows I've had experiences where I've been in a lot of pain and done horrible things to people. Mm. So.
I think we can all relate to that.
So I get it, which makes it even harder, actually. But. Yeah.
I have one other sort of TV related question. It's sort of a legend that I heard about you a few years ago, and I've never asked, and I'm just curious how you got your first TV job.
Yeah, this is true, and I hope I haven't hyperbolized it over the years, but my play, That Pretty Pretty, or the Rape Play, was going up in New York, and it was receiving I wouldn't say great press, but it was receiving hot press. Like, people were hot about this play. They had a lot of strong opinions about it. Very polarizing play, and because it was a deconstructed look at misogyny in the media, and it was the first forthright feminist play I'd written, and it was also it had a lot of anger seething beneath it, and so it got a lot of attention, and at the time, The United States of Terror was a show that was on Showtime, which is a half-hour show. And Jill Soloway, who was a writer in the first year, who we all know from Transparent now, but she had her big writing credits before then were she worked on Grey's Anatomy, but she was also one of the people who helped shape 6 Feet Under, one of my favorite shows. She was about to run that room. They had let go of the one showrunner, and they were hiring her as a showrunner. And she was looking for a playwright because she had worked with playwrights with Alan Ball on 6 Feet Under, and she was also looking for a feminist because the voice of the show, she wanted to have a stronger female point of view than it had. And she was also looking for somebody who could write rape funny because the woman in our show had multiple personality disorder, which is usually, or I guess typically, tends to happen when you have some sort of sexual trauma when you're a child. So this part I think is true. She Googled feminist, playwright, and rape and got me. But then there's another level to why I got hired.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, that's
exactly what I heard.
Oh yeah, well, so that's true. But the other reason I think I got hired, aside from the fact that I could write, I had to be helped a little bit to figure out what TV was, versus playwriting. But I had a baby at the time, and she had a baby at the time, and so she was also making this statement. She made our bungalow into half a nursery, and then we shared a nanny. And so, I know there's probably 100 other writers who have written that show really well. I might have been one of the only ones with an infant who was coming to LA by herself because we didn't know if this TV thing was going to work out. So Soph stayed home. I brought my baby, and we shared a nanny. And then it turns out I wasn't bad at it, so I got to keep doing it. But yeah, so those are the two aspects of the hiring of Sheila Callaghan to the world of television.
I love that it's true.
Yeah.
Because so often you hear some silly little rumor, and then it's more like, no, actually, my agent called the other.
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't really even have I had a TV agent who hadn't gotten me anything. I hadn't even gone on a meeting. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't my current agency right now. I like my current agency now. But at the time, I was like, she emailed me out of the blue. Jill fucking Soloway emailed me out of the blue and was like, hi, I don't know if you know who I am. Of course I knew who she was. But I'm looking for writers, and I saw that you had this play. Do you mind sending it to me? And I forwarded that to the TV people at my agency, and I was like, you guys, is this real? And my TV agent was like, interesting, this could be something. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe you should have gotten there first. Right, that's your job. But anyway, it's fine.
You see how easy it is?
Well, people now are picking playwrights and other kind of writers out in a way that right when I got in, they weren't doing so much. So I'm really glad that they are, because playwrights are good TV writers. So, in my opinion.
Do you have other playwrights in your writer's room now?
Yeah, we just got, for a while, he's still there. But Eitan Frankel, who he's not so much of a playwright anymore. He I think did more of what you talk about when people, use playwriting to get somewhere and then start with television as a full-time gig. But Dominique Morisseau is on her second season with us, and she's amazing. She's a fantastic writer, and she picked up so fast. So I'm really happy she's in that room. Yeah.
I want to get her in this room.
Yeah, you can. She's out here now. We start our room on Monday, so get her.
All right.
I bet she'll do it. She's great.
I have to admit that I was super nervous coming in today because I've known you for a couple of years, but I've never actually really had it. I mean, the theater where I work produced your play a couple of years ago, but I never really had a conversation with you. So I know you through your work, and I know you through your social media, and I was really intimidated. And I'm like
I'm a 5'1", 103-pound woman. I'm not tired intimidated.
And it'd eat me alive.
Oh, that's
I don't know how to sit in front of her and ask her questions. And I was having coffee with a playwright friend who we know in common, and I said this to him just yesterday. I was like, do you know Sheila? I'm interviewing her tomorrow, and he was like, oh yeah, she's great. I'm like, should I be scared? He goes, why? and then hours later, I go see Bed, and I'm like, oh my god,
it's worse.
Oh my god. But you're awesome.
Oh, thank you. You're awesome too, and this podcast is awesome. I'm really happy you're doing it.
I'm glad that you did this.
Me too.
So thank you.
Thank you, dude. This was great. Yay!
Yay, we did it.
A big thank you to Sheila Callaghan. Hopefully you're listening to this in time to catch both Bed at the Echo Theater and Women Laughing Alone with Salad at the Kirk Douglas. Nobody writes like Sheila. Nobody. And if you don't know that already, you're in for a treat. Now moving on to the credits. The Subtext is brought to you by the support of Bill Bordy, whose generosity makes At This Stage magazine happen. Thank you to Bill. Thank you to Danny Oliver and LA Stage Alliance, and thank you to Johnny's Podcast Factory for making this recording sound so sweet. Check out his website, sundayshow.org. Subscribe to the Subtext on iTunes, tweet us at Subtext Podcast, email us, thesubtextpodcast@gmail.com. High five us when you see us on the street. I love how we always say us, as if there's like a team of 50 people. Anyway, you made it to the end. Thank you. Next month, we discuss tax reform with Grover Norquist.